this app called Filmic Pro, which is a great app for iOS and Android, which will give you more manual control over your smartphone's camera. So if you're really looking for the most professional look, wait around to that Filmic Pro and we'll get into that. So if you have any questions while we're going forward, I'll ask you just to save them until the end. We're going to have a whole period at the end for Q&A. And because there's some technical things in here, I don't want to slow down with questions and everything. So if you have a question while we're going, take a note of it, write it down. You can put it in the chat if you want, and we'll get to it during the Q&A session. But first, let's talk about smartphones. So I assume everyone here has a smartphone like most people on the earth, but if you're here in this Zoom, you probably have a smartphone. And the amazing thing about smartphones is in this little device, you have millions of dollars worth of video equipment in there. If you wanted to make, a professional video, 10, 15 years ago, before HD smartphones, you needed a big camera. You needed all of this equipment that is packed into this phone. And each time a new phone comes out, this is the 11, they've come out with the 12, the Samsung has the S20. Each time that they make a new phone, the one feature that they always change is the camera. That is the thing that they're always upgrading. They're always making the camera better and better because let's face it, there's only so much you can do with a phone to make it better, but the cameras on these, they get so much better each iteration. I remember when these had one lens on them. Now sometimes at 1, 2, 3. Some of those highway phones have 4 or 5. They even the L16 camera. That's not a phone, but it has 16 lenses. So they're putting a lot of camera technology into this. So what we're going to look at today is how you can simply harness this technology, harness this little piece of hardware and the software that's on it to make stunning, cinematic, beautiful videos each time. So first, let's take a look at an example of an amazing video. Who here, you guys remember the shot on iPhone advertising campaign where they showed all those videos that you can make on smartphones? Here, well, let's take a look at one of those to show you really just how amazing, what amazing work you can make with these devices. So let's watch this video quickly. Everyone see that all right? All right, here we go. Pretty good. No, ooh, sorry. Not bad, right? That's pretty amazing that you can make that with this exact phone, just this little phone. But you can do this with most new smartphones, whether they be Android or iOS. And it's really amazing how a little phone can shoot something that looks like a Hollywood epic. That was actually directed by a Hollywood director. So pretty amazing there. And you can see in that video all the advantages that come with the phone. I mean, it shoots in full HD or in 4K. It's small, it's lightweight. You can put it on the cell, put it on the sled. You can do all these different cool things with the phone. But let's take it now and let's teach you how you can do this, because as we all know, it's very easy to also make very bad video with your smartphone. Who here has seen some bad video on the internet that's shot on a smartphone? Yeah, it's everywhere. But we're going to learn today how to never make video like this again, because you're going to come out of this and every video that you make with your smartphone is going to be A+ Hollywood caliber. So let's first talk about physically how you should be when you're shooting. And I know this might seem a little basic, but trust me, this is really important. This is going to go towards making sure that you get amazing footage each time. So let's talk about holding the phone. So when you're holding the phone, you want to hold the phone, well, you want to hold it like this or like this. I know that there's a big, global argument about horizontal versus vertical video. I don't want to start World War III, so I'm not going to get into it. But if you want to make sure that you're holding the camera however you want, but make sure that your fingers are sort of on the edge of it or you're away from the lens. Because one of these common mistakes when you're holding the camera is that you get a little finger over the lens. You guys have seen this on the internet as well. The little finger in the corner that's just hanging out, and that ruins the video. That nothing says unprofessional like a little finger in the corner. So you want to make sure that you're holding it. You also want to make sure that you're holding the camera close to your body. That's how you're going to be able to get really steady footage, because really shaky footage doesn't look good. That's how we get bad videos, if it's really shaking. And one way that you can do this is by holding the camera close to your body, because the closer that it is to your body, the more that it's going to shake. People have a tendency when they're shooting, to go and they put their arms all the way out like this. You guys have seen, you've been to the park or you've been to Times Square, you've been somewhere before and you see this guy who's there and he's got his phone and he's doing this. And because he's so far out here, he can't hold on to the phone, so it shakes. But if you just bring the phone closer to you, the shake it'll be minimized and you'll be able to hold it nice and steady. And this brings to another point, which is when you're shooting, you want to breathe. And I know that this sounds very basic, but it's something that people often forget. I often, when I was first doing video, you just tense up and you stop breathing and then you start shaking and you start getting nervous. Breathing and remaining calm. Michael says calma a lot. You want to stay calma when you're shooting, because the calmer that you are, the more that you're able to think about what you're putting on the screen, and you're not frantic. Because if you're in the space and you're frantic and you're running around and you're trying to do this and that, the footage is going to come out frantic, and then it's going to have to be rescued, which is going to be difficult to do. Now, I want to talk quickly, because I was talking about how you hold the phone. There are some scenarios in which, when you get to the space when you're shooting, depending on what you're shooting is going to determine how you're going to shoot it. So if you're going to be shooting, a 5-shot sequence of someone, chopping the carrots, as Michael says, then that's where you might, you're going to want to use the camera handheld, so you can quickly go around to these different angles and get the shots. But let's say, if you're shooting something static, if you're, shooting art, or you're shooting buildings or something that isn't moving, that you might want to put your camera on a tripod. And they make all these different tripod accessories for smartphones, so you can be able to find that. And it really depends on what you're trying to shoot. So that will be there. So now you're in the space, you're physically ready to shoot, but now you need to determine, like I said, what you're going to shoot and how you're going to shoot it. And, Michael talks a lot about, if you're a member of the site, you've heard this before, when you get to a space that you're shooting, take 20 minutes to take in the location and figure out what you want to shoot, what your different events are. And also during this 20-minute time, you want to be looking for all the different things that are going to affect your shot, be it lighting, be it the music in the background, all these different things that you want to take into account. So let's talk about lighting for a second. So when you're lighting when you are looking for the light that you want to use on a person, it's important that you want to keep the light in front of the person. So you see here, I'm using a little ring light that's over here, so that's coming on my face. But you want to avoid something that's called backlight. Do people here know what backlight is? Right. So when you put a subject, let's say you're shooting and there's a big window and lots of sunlight is coming in. If you put the person, your character, right in front of the window, you're going to get backlight, because the camera, which takes in the light through the lens, is going to be reading all that light and is going to want to bring up the exposure, which we'll talk about a little bit for the person. So you're going to get something that looks a little something like this if you did that. I'm just going to put a quick little small little picture on the board because everyone see that. So you get something where the back of the person is completely lit, but you can't really see anything of the face. He's just a silhouette, and that's because there's no light on his face. All of the light is coming from behind him. So if you get yourself into a shooting situation where you find that there's a little backlight, just rotate the whole situation, put the window behind you so the light is coming in on the person, and then you'll be able to fix that situation. Now, let's talk, before we get into the camera more, let's talk about one more thing before we get into the camera. And that is audio. Audio is very, very important when you're making great video with your smartphone. And a lot of people tend to think, this is video, this is a visual thing, and they leave the audio until the last second, or they don't really think about it. And this is something that should be on your mind from the moment that you walk into the room. So if you walk into the space, let's say you're shooting in a restaurant, let's keep with the example, and you hear that they're playing music in the background, you're not going to be able to use that footage with the music. So you're going to want to ask the people to turn the music off. Now, also, when you're filming someone, you want to be cognizant of where the microphones are on these phones. Now, there's a little microphone on the back of most of these phones by your lens. That's on all iPhones, on most Android phones, you have a microphone there. There's also a microphone on the bottom of the phones, and usually a microphone on the front. Again, this depends on what exactly model of phone you have, but that's generally how it is. But these microphones are generally designed for phone calls and not for shooting video. They're omnidirectional. And that means they take in sound from all directions. So they're going to hear things that you might not even hear yourself that's on the phone. So you want to be careful with that. And if you're going to make, the best video that you can with your smartphone, you might want to invest in some smartphone audio accessories. Now, when I first started making videos with smartphones, I think it was like the iPhone 3 a million years ago. And the camera was terrible, the audio was terrible, but I was doing it. But they didn't make accessories or anything. Then, the 7 came out, and that was the one where you could start doing 1080p HD on it. And that was really the first game-changing phone, was the iPhone 7. I think it was the Galaxy S7 as well, was that. And once that happened, all of a sudden these people realized they could make this was a video production tool, and all these accessories started coming out. So if you search, they sell shotgun microphones, wireless microphones at all price ranges. You can check those out, and they generally plug into either the headphone jack or your charger outlet. Just make sure you get one that's compatible with your phone, because that way, if you have a professional mic on it that's designed for video recording rather than for making a phone call, then you're going to be able to get great audio. And honestly, in the world of videos, 70% of what you see is what you hear. And people will forgive a little shaky video. The second that your video has bad audio, people are turning it off right away. Who here has turned off a YouTube video because it has bad audio? I do it almost every day, but I watch a lot of YouTube videos. So that's audio and accessories. And we can talk a little more about accessories later. They make every sort of kind of accessory for smartphone now, between lights and stands and gimbals. There's so much that you can look into. But let's talk now about framing, because now you physically are ready to shoot. You have your phone out, you have your subject, you've heard the audio, you take into account lighting. So now let's talk about framing. Now, what is framing? Framing is everything that appears within the frame. So I'm framed now, I'm in the center of the frame. My face is pretty big, so that's what you're focusing on. And when you're framing, you're basically telling the viewer what you want to focus on. Now, this is good framing. This is bad framing. You see, I'm all the way here. There's so much negative space over here. Similarly, this is bad framing. I'm now small over here and here. This is bad framing. This is bad framing. This is good framing. And that's just for a person. The thing is, as Michael says, you guys have watched a lot of TV and movies, and you watch Netflix, you watch HBO, you know what is a beautiful image, and you want to recreate that on your phone's screen. And the beauty with the phones, I just took a little screenshot. The beauty with the phones is what you see on the screen when you're recording is what you get. When you are shooting, what you see while you're on the screen, while you're recording, is exactly what's going to be on the computer or on the TV when you upload that to YouTube. I mean, the colors, you can do whatever you want on the edit, but it's going to be pretty much exactly as you see it. So before you hit that record button, if you're down there and you're taking the close-up of the hands, chopping the carrots, get the phone nice and low, as close as you can, and wait until you see the image that you want to see on the phone, on the screen. And then when you see that perfect image that you love, hit the record button and let it roll. It's, you know, it's a really, you know, methodical process. You want to make sure that what you're putting on the screen is beautiful. And now there are a few things that you can do inside the camera app, either on your iPhone or on your Android phone, that can help you make that look as beautiful as it can. So I'm going to connect my phone now. We're just going to take a look in the in my camera app. Now, as you could see, I'm using a as you could see, I'm using a iPhone, but this works. All the instruction here is similar for. Sorry, I just had a little phone issue. All these instruction is pretty much the same across iOS and Android. They have very similar interfaces on their camera apps and pretty much work the same way. So, okay, I have this all set up again. So I just had a little tripod malfunction. And now I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, here's my camera app. I'm gonna put this on my little tripod here. And here are my quarantine friends. Yes, yeah, Eva was asking earlier how quarantine has been. It's been good for me. I've made these two friends here. Oh, I'm still vertical. Sorry about that. Let's fix this little technical. There we go. There we go. So now you guys can meet my quarantine friends, Fox and Princess. This is this is just the standard iPhone camera app. You guys have seen this a million times, I'm sure. And what we're going to talk about here, what we're going to talk about here is focus and exposure. Actually, I'm going to bring you back here first before we talk about focus and exposure, because I want to explain this a little sort of theoretically before we go into it. So does everyone here know what focus and exposure is? Okay, so let me tell you. So focus is where the camera's focus is on there. Our eyes basically are camera lenses, but our eyes focus on everything automatically. You know, when you look at something, your eye automatically does a little focus. Or camera is a mechanical eye, so it can't quite do that. So you have to change the position, or in the smartphone's case, digitally change the position so that it's showing what is in focus and what's not in focus. And you've seen this in movies before. You know, one person is very sharp, the background is all blurry and fuzzy, or one person's very sharp and the person behind them is very fuzzy. So that is your camera focus. So that is what the camera is focusing on. And that's, you know, useful for determining what your viewer is going to be focused on. Exposure is how much light is let into the lens. And our eyes do this the same way. I mean, have you guys, you know, you're in a dark room, you go to see the movies, and then you step outside and the sun's out, and, you know, the iris contracts or expands to let in more light, and your eyes have to adjust. Now, again, the camera has a mechanical process and does this through opening and closing the shutter to allow more light or less light in. So it's a little abstract. Let me show you exactly what I mean. So I'll go back over here to my phone. Oh, I just have to do this again, sorry. Okay, so here we are on my phone. So as you can see here, Fox is in focus. This is Fox here. So Fox is in focus. Now, if I want to change the focus, if I want to put the focus on the princess, all I have to do here in the camera app is simply tap on the princess, and you'll see a little box comes around and the focus shifts. Did everyone see that? You see the focus shifted from Fox in the foreground to the princess by my little cactus back there. And now if I want to switch the focus back to Fox, all I have to do is tap on Fox again and tap on his face, and you see the focus will shift again. Now, if I want to lock the focus, and again, I can do this while I'm shooting. So if I have this recording, I can do this while I'm shooting. I can do a little, we call this a rack focus in the biz, do a little rack focus while I'm doing it. Now, if I want to lock the focus in place, let's say I want it to be focused on the princess. And no matter what I do with the camera, if I move it around, if I do anything, I want the focus to lock on that spot on the princess. What I'll do is I'll tap on the princess's face and get the box around her. And then if I tap and I hold, you see the big box comes there and it says auto exposure and auto focus lock. So I've locked the focus. So let's talk about exposure. I haven't talked about exposure yet. So let's go back over here to Fox. So now if I want to raise or lower the exposure, and again, that's how much light is let into the camera, all I have to do is tap and drag by, you guys see this sun icon? So that's the exposure icon. And if I tap and I drag and I will just keep tapping this up and keep tapping and dragging up, this is my exposure all the way up. So that's too much. Too much light is being let into the camera. Now, if I tap again and I drag down, you'll see the sun starts coming down and I can lower the exposure as far down as I want. So if I wanted something very moody, you know, with just a little bit of the light on Fox's face, that's something that I could do. I actually like the look of that. I'm gonna take a little record of that. And you can see, if you look at my camera here again, this is how light it is in my room. There's a lot of light in here, but I've taken the exposure down all the way that it basically looks in my image like it's nighttime in this room. Pretty crazy. So then if I want to reset it, I just stop recording and it'll do it automatically and bring me here. So that is how you change your focus and exposure. And again, with the exposure, if I bring the exposure down here and I want to lock it, I just tap, I hold, I tap, I hold, and it'll lock. Ooh. Then it's just wishing a friend of mine happy birthday, sorry. And then, so now let's take a look at these three numbers over here. So this is pretty much for iPhone. I think it's the same on Android, but if your phone has more than one lens on it, you'll have a selection to choose which lens you want to be shooting on. Now, right now we're in sort of the wide angle lens. So if I click on this one, oh, sorry, that went to slow-mo. If I click on this one, this is a sort of a wider shot. You can see my apartment a little more. And if I go on 2, this is the closer shot. So that's the super close lens. Now, if you tap and hold on these, you'll get like a little zoom slider. I would avoid this. So I would say if you want to stay on one of these main, so 0.5, 1, or 2, I would say stay on those because that's switching between the different lenses instead of, but then as you go, sorry, then as you go further on the slider, as you go further on the slider, you see there, that's all the way zoomed in, and you see that the quality starts to degrade a little bit. I mean, on Fox's face, it's pretty good, but then on the wall on the background, you see how it's all fuzzy there. And that's because the zoom really collapses the image. And I'm just gonna bring this back to 1. I would say with your phone here, I don't have to keep sharing for now. The beauty of these things, of the phone, is that they're so small, they're so lightweight that there are certain things that you can do with this that you wouldn't be able to do with such a big camera. So, you know, if I was at a pickup basketball game, let's say in, you know, the before COVID times, if I was shooting a basketball game, if I had a giant camera that was, you know, from ESPN or something, I would have to stand in one spot the whole time with my camera on the tripod, and I'd move this giant camera, and that's it. But with the phone, you're mobile, you can go anywhere. You can really do whatever your mind imagines. You can take the phone and you can, you know, put it like, you know, I put it so close on this little guy that he looked like he was a huge character. And I mean, that's one of the beauties with the phone, is that you can be the human zoom. You can go at, you know, at this basketball game and get as close as you want with the phone. So if you ever have the urge to use the zoom on the camera, I would stop and I would think, is there anything stopping me from physically going and getting there? Because the closer that you are to these objects and the more that they fill the screen, the more beautiful they are, frankly. I mean, this is like a little toy, but when it was up in close up, I mean, it looked pretty compelling. And the reality is video has this way of doing this with the most banal things. I mean, we can go to the, you know, chopping the carrots example. You know, if you get close enough to it and you put it on the screen and it looks beautiful on the screen when you're doing it, you know, a simple task such as, you know, prepping vegetables can turn into something that's quite compelling, quite cinematic, something that, you know, draws your viewer in and keeps them watching through, you know, your whole story. To this end, I want to show you another video. This is a video that was shot recently by one of in the Spectrum courses that we've been doing. And this was shot completely on a phone. And this shows you some of the cool things that you can do with the phone, where you can put it, how you can hold it, all the different cool things that you can do with the phone. And really with the phone and, you know, these tools, the sky is the limit. It's as much as your imagination can do. So let's take a quick look at this video.
If you ever have the chance to meet Melissa Ubri, you'll quickly find out she's in constant forward motion.
Can't go more than a couple days without rollerblading. I just love it so much.
She has good reason why she tries to put on her skates every day.
Helping me feel better.
It took Ubri longer than a decade to figure out she needed professional help.
I just have got to stay hydrated in the San Antonio heat.
You see, Melissa is 1 in 5 Americans struggling with mental health.
And just making it a daily process to strive to be better.
Ubri admits some days are harder than others just to get out the door, so she works hard to keep her stride going. One thing that helps her feel better is to help others.
Hello, sir. Would you like something to drink?
Sure, thank you very much.
Oh, what about popcorn?
Sure.
There you go.
You have a blessed day. Be a little blessed on your journey.
Yeah, thank you.
Amen.
Thank you.
She's happy whenever she gives out juice packs and popcorn to people who really appreciate it.
Juice?
How are you guys doing?
Good. Would you like a juice?
A juice would be good. I don't think the
Okay.
candy bar is, you know,
Yeah,
it's,
it's all right.
thanks. Hey, out there, all my fans, you know.
The single mother of one tells me she's been real close to finding herself a couple of times living on the streets.
Well, I appreciate it. It's get hard. I've been there. And to not feel forgotten and to be shown some respect. That's what everybody deserves. We all just want to feel loved.
That's pretty good, right? Not bad. Done completely on a phone. And the amazing thing with that is if you looked at some of the more interesting shots, I mean, obviously there was stuff there that you could do with a traditional camera. You know, there was, you know, the shot where she's giving stuff out in the park and that stuff, you know, you can hold a big camera. But then there was some stuff that was done that really could only be done with a smartphone. That was, you know, I think he was rollerblading alongside of her. So, you know, with a big camera, that's difficult. With a smartphone, that's, you know, pretty simple if you're a good enough rollerblader. And then also that shot where she was putting stuff in the bag, she's putting her shoes and the water bottle in the bag. He put the phone inside the bag, recording upward as the stuff came in. And that's just something that you couldn't do with a traditional camera. I mean, there are just so many different little advantages to having this piece of technology that's this size in your pocket. And it also allows for a certain intimacy that you don't get often with big cameras. Because, I mean, just think about this yourself. I mean, all of us are very used to being recorded with smartphones now. You know, our friends take them out, they want us to say something, they want, you know, people are always shooting stuff on the street of people on smartphones and it doesn't faze us. But when you see someone with a big camera, you go like, oh, and you get like very like, I'm on big camera and you're just not natural. And it just takes away from, you know, the journey that we're going on in the video or this, you know, taking away. So that's some of the nice things about the smartphone there. So now let's talk quickly about the Filmic Pro app. Now, Filmic Pro, so basically now, if you wanted to go out and say, I wanted to shoot a music video, a film, a documentary, any sort of story that you wanted to do with your smartphones, you now have the tools to go and do it. But if you wanted to, you know, up your game one more level, if you wanted to say, I want to make the most beautiful thing in the world, I want to, you know, get a, because, you know, smartphones now, they're being used on Oscar movies. You know, I think the documentary a few years ago was shot completely on an iPhone. David Fincher did a movie on an iPhone. So now you can do Hollywood things on an iPhone in that video that we showed in the beginning, but you're going to need a little more control of the camera than what you get from the native camera app. So I'm just going to connect my phone again. So here's my phone again. Let's go into Filmic Pro. So here is the Filmic Pro app. Oops, sorry, turned off my phone when I went into the. So here's the Filmic Pro app, and already you can see that it looks more professional than your standard camera app. So here you can see, let's just take a little tour of the interface. The first thing that you should probably notice that's different are the audio meters over here. And this is a really important thing that your native camera app doesn't have. Remember, I was saying before how important audio is, and audio being 70% of what you see is what you hear. So being able to monitor your audio while you're recording is very useful. I mean, just to tell a quick story, I was once shooting a video and I had my headphones plugged in, and I didn't realize that that had made the microphone switch to the microphone that was in my headphones. So instead of using the microphone on my phone, I was using the microphone in my headphones, but I had no way of knowing this because I was just using the camera app and the headphones weren't in the whole time. And then when I got back with the footage, this was like 5 years ago, I got back with the footage and all of it was just me panting. It was just me going, so obviously no good, but if I had been able to see that while I was shooting, or if I was able to monitor that, I wouldn't have been able to know what was going on, and I wouldn't have had to make a very embarrassing phone call to a client. So let's take, so again here, so that's our audio meters, that's very good. This down here shows you your time codes, how long you've been shooting, what resolution you're shooting in, how many frames per second you're shooting in, how much battery your phone has, how much space your phone has, which I'm running out of a little bit. And then you have these two little things here on the screen. Now, this one we recognize, that looks a lot like the one from the camera app. So that is the focus reticle. So where I move this, the focus is going to change. So if I move this over to the Princess and tap on there, why is it not moving over? Maybe if I bring this over to the Princess, you'll see there it focuses on the Princess. So it's going to focus on whatever that square, whatever in that square. And if I move the camera, that square, wherever that is what's going to be in focus. So if I move that over here, you'll see Fox is in focus now. Now, there's a really cool thing that you get on Filmic Pro that you do not get otherwise in the camera app, and that is a few guides to help you with that. So if we just hit this A here, you'll see this little top bar comes up. And these are some different tools here that help you manage your focus and your exposure. So let's talk about focus first. So that's going to be this little FP, and that's focal point. So if I tap that once, it's going to turn the image into black and white, and it's going to show with a green outline what is in focus. So what's in focus now is Fox. And then if I move this over to here, to the Princess, you'll see it changes, and now what's in the background is in focus. If I tap this FP again up here, it'll bring it to color, but I still will have, oh no. So I'll bring that out. So now if I tap and I hold the square reticle, I'll get this thing here on the side here, as everyone see, this little focus wheel, and this will allow me to manually control the focus like I would on an actual lens camera. So I can move this here until I get him in the green. I can move this. Oh, and if I leave that there and bring the slider up, I'll get the green while I'm sliding. So that'll show me what's in focus there. So another cool thing that you can do with Filmic Pro is what's called a rack focus. I mentioned this earlier. Does anyone, you might know what a rack focus is. You've probably seen this all the time in the movies where, you know, it's like, the guy's doing something and then a figure comes behind them, and then the narrator he had no idea that so-and-so was behind him, and the focus will switch to what's behind him and he'll go blurry. That's called a rack focus, and that's changing two focal lengths here. So what you can do here to make a rack focus easy, instead of having to manually do it and, you know, try and find him or use the boxes, I can come to where Fox is in focus. Sorry, I can come to where Fox is in focus. And then I can tap this little line here where it is. Move this a little bit. And tap this little line here. And that'll bring one of my, you saw that other line that shot up. So now I've created a reference point here. So I'm saying, remember this focal point. Then I'm going to bring my focus wheel. I'm going to bring it down so that the Princess is in focus. I'm going to tap the center line again. And you'll see that other line came through here. And now I can switch the focuses just by tapping on those two lines. So I can say, the Princess never told anyone that she was really in love with the fox. And you'll see there that it does the focus automatically. All I have to do is tap this line. The fox, however, didn't want to marry a royal because he liked his privacy too much. And then we tap that one and it goes back to her in focus. And you can turn off the green if you want by ticking this A, and then we can just go back and forth with the two lines. So that's focus. And you'll see there when the thing turns red, that means the focus is locked. And I can also do that by tapping and holding down. So if I drag this over to here, I tap it again, make it white, I bring it over to Fox, so he's in focus. If I tap and hold, oh no, if I just tap it and it turns red and my focus is set. Now let's quickly talk about exposure. So exposure has its own little circle here. You see the little circle, that's your exposure circle. In the native camera app, that was combined with the focus here and we just dragged up and down. Here we can set the focus for a certain point. So if I go over to this really bright point over here, it's gonna set the focus, set the exposure for the brightness over there. I don't think there might not be so much change in exposure here. But if I bring the exposure over to here, oh, there's a slight change. You saw that it opened up a little more as I got to the darker area to compensate for there being less light. So again, if I tap and hold this down, I get up a little slider and I can now manually control the focus. I can bring it all the way down to darkness. I can bring it all the way up to way too much light. And now you might be thinking to yourself, Brett, there are all these numbers here on the side. What do they mean? Where should I actually be in exposure? What are you supposed to do? And I could go into hours about what these numbers mean, but I think the simpler thing to do here is to show you another one of our handy little tools here from the little assistant tab here. So if I tap on that and I tap on this here, this is what we call zebra stripes, or if you're from the UK, zebra stripes in the camera. So the red zebra stripes are going to show you where we are overexposed. That is, too much light is being let in, as opposed to the blue lights over here on my little black box over here, where there is underexposure. It's too dark and nothing is being shown there. But considering that's just a black box, I don't really want definition on that. I'm more concerned with the fact that Fox, who is my main character here, is overexposed. So I'm just going to take this slider and I'm going to bring it down so that I get no more of those zebra lights here. I'm fine with this because that's actually my light. So I'm going to keep that as a little overexposed because that's my light. And this, again, I'm fine with the underexposure over here because that's in the background and it's not really that important. So then when I turn this off and we see what the image looks like, that's the image exposed nicely. And you can really see, that fox is pretty cool. I like that there. So we're running out of time, so I'm just going to quickly go through the last few things here. By the way, there's so much. We're really just scratching the surface here on Filmic Pro. If you're interested in Filmic Pro and you want to learn this, I would suggest going and checking out our course on Filmic Pro in the mobile section, where you can learn everything about how to use this. But one quick thing that I want to show you here is a cool thing that you can do is, so if we bring up our settings here, I want to talk about these three items here. So let's go right to left. Let's go backwards. Let's go like we're reading Hebrew. So let's go with audio here. So if I tap here, this is all my audio options. And I really want to focus on this top one. These ones here, you can learn about that. But this is where you can select what microphone that you want the camera to use. Obviously, something that you cannot do in the camera app. Here, you see that it's defaulted to the back iPhone mic. So that is the microphone that's right on the other side of my lens. Then if I tap here, I can go, there's the front one, there's the bottom one. So I can switch between these three. And if I had a microphone wired microphone connected onto this, it would show up in this list. And also if I had a Bluetooth microphone, I could, if I had a Bluetooth microphone, I could turn this on and I can connect that. I could also turn audio completely off and just record video. But again, you see now I have no audio meters here. So I know that I'm not recording any video. So I'll turn that off. We'll get video on this. We'll get audio on this. Then if you go over here to frame rate, you can change the frame rate. Here we're at 24 frames per second. You can go all the way up to 240 frames per second, which would be good for something like a time lapse or something. I would say you want to keep this pretty much on 25, or I like 30 because that's what I edit in 30 frames per second. So I like to keep it all the same. And then resolution here, you can choose different shooting aspect ratios. So you see here, this is kind of the standard 16:9. I can go to 17:9:32 square 1:1. I can go into like if I was making Fox if I was making the IMAX movie Fox, I might use this or sort of letterbox here or this one. There are all these different things that you can do. And then also here you can change the quality. So you can change your resolution from 1080p to 2K, 3K, 4K, which is 4 times 1080p, and change what you want to go down to 720. And that is Filmic Pro. Obviously, we really just scratched the surface. There's so much that you can do with this app that gives you, it basically opens up all of the camera features that they hide in the native camera app, all these things that it's doing in the background for you, because the camera app is designed for anyone and their mother to be able to pick up the phone and shoot something and have it look nice. But if you want to have full manual control and you want to do these nice things with washed out backgrounds, if you want to have nice depth of field, I would really suggest using Filmic Pro. So before we wrap up and I take questions, I just want to again really emphasize it's how versatile and cool these phones are, and how much of a game changer they've been in the video world. I mean, I remember when I was making stuff on my iPhone 3G or whatever it was, people would laugh and rightfully so, because the video quality wasn't great. And people are like, you're making a music video with an iPhone? What are you doing? Like, get your life together, get a real camera. But then all of a sudden now, Oscar-winning movies are made on smartphones, and it's really a no-brainer because you have this with you in your pocket all the time. It's already with you. So you're always in a position to make a Hollywood quality video. No more excuses. But you don't have to spend the millions and millions of dollars to do it. You can do it with the equipment that you already have. And all you need to do is follow these steps, follow these tips, and unlock your imagination, and the sky's the limit, and you can make whatever you want. So that is the lecture portion of the workshop. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you found it informative. And we have about 15 minutes here to take some questions. So I'll open up the floor. If you want to raise your hand on the thing, and then you can unmute yourself when I call you. So Irene, it looks like your hand is up. But oh no, she doesn't have a microphone attached. Does someone have a question? You can just unmute yourself and go ahead. Yes, Eva.
Hi, regarding the app that you showed us. So
Yes.
when you're shooting, so you buy the app, right? Probably. Yeah. Then when you're shooting, you turn on that app. You don't go. You go to your camera, or
no. You turn on the Filmic Pro app and you shoot everything through that app. That's one thing that I do want to. Thank you, Eva. I do want to quickly show you, because I did leave that off, which was actually hitting the record button. There's a little record button there, and when you're done shooting, it saves it automatically to your camera, to your phone's camera roll, so to your picture. So if you're here, you see the little white button here. When I tap it, oh, that's very scary. So when I tap it, it turns red, and I'm shooting. And then when I'm done, that will appear in my phone on the camera roll.
Okay.
Cool.
A lot to learn.
I would really suggest, if you're interested in Filmic Pro, because we were really only able to scratch the surface here, to check out the course on the website. It really goes in depth on it, and you'll learn everything that you need to know, and you'll be able to see some nice instruction there. So are there any other questions? Anyone at all? It could be about this, about life. All right. Well, then. Oh yeah, go ahead, Eva.
Does the course go into more specifics about aspect ratio and all of that, all those little aspects?
Yeah. So it'll go through each of those features individually in the course. Did I see, Caitlin, that you had a question?
Yeah, I was just going to ask if you know what kind of phone mount the reporter in San Antonio was using when he shot that rollerblading video, Because I noticed in the
I'm-
reflection of his sunglasses, he had.
Yeah, I saw a reflection. I actually was trying to suss that out as well because I saw the reflection in the sunglasses. I'm not 100% sure he had some sort of mount on there. Like I was saying when we were talking about accessories, they make anything that you can imagine for a phone. They even make shoulder, if you can believe it or not, shoulder like grips for your phone where you can put the phone on your shoulder like you're an old cameraman. One thing that I really like that I have is a little gimbal, which is it's like a little robotic head, and it puts the phone on and it stabilizes it. So if you have shaky hands like myself, that's a nice thing to do that stabilizes it. But generally, if you're in, we're just shooting, if you're doing your 5-shot method, you're getting 10-second clips or something. Most cases, just holding the phone is fine enough. But if you have more accessories and things, you might want to look into a rig. But it really depends on what personally works best for you. Are there any other questions? Yeah, go ahead, Frank. Oh, Frank, you're muted. You're muted. Frank, you're on mute. Oh,
yeah,
here we go.
Okay. Do you ever use a USB stick for transporting the video to easy to and fast to a laptop or a computer or whatever?
No, I haven't. What is that? Would you say a V stick?
No, a USB stick.
Oh, USB stick. Oh, USB stick. I missed the beginning of that. Yeah, I mean, generally if we're talking about, transferring your media from your phone to your computer, there are different ways. I generally would say it's good to use a USB or an external hard drive to store your footage because the video, particularly video in 1080p that we're shooting on our phones, those files are very large. So if you are, like me and you're constantly shooting video, if you keep throwing it onto your computer, after, a few days, you're going to run out of space on your computer. And you can get yourself now a terabyte of hard drive for, a couple $100, if not less. So I definitely would suggest having a hard drive to put your footage on. In terms of transferring footage, one thing that's really great, and I know that I am kind of a little bit of a walking commercial for Apple instead of Android, but on your iPhone also, if you have an iPhone and then you're using a Mac computer, you can use a feature called AirDrop, which is a really fast way over Wi-Fi and Bluetooth to send media from your phone to your computer. I think I sent like 30 gigabytes of video, like a couple hours of video in like a minute on AirDrop. You just tap in it and it goes. But yeah, definitely invest in like some sort of external hard drive or Dropbox or something. They say that you want to store your stuff in a few different places just in case the unthinkable happens.
And another thing is, I made a small video on a skate park, and at the end of the day, I ran out of battery power. What do you use as external battery?
So if you're going to be shooting video, and if you're going to be in the camera app, or especially if you're going to be in Filmic Pro, your battery is going to drain very quickly. Now, one of the nice things is they sell a bunch of like external chargers. So if I'm going out on a shoot, I always bring my first of all, I always make sure that I'm at 100% right when it starts. That's just like, I like to start at 100% because I know from experience, if you start at 73%, that extra 27% is going to come back to bite you in the butt in the end. So I always like to start right at 100, and then I bring an external battery with me that I can plug into it. They also make, external like cases that are batteries that will plug into the phone. So I would definitely say have external power ready because you don't want to be thrown off by losing battery.
And then one last one.
Yes.
Do you know, you see, there is only one small lightning connector.
Yes.
And you want to put everything in it. Is there already a small hub?
So there are some hubs that you can get that will allow you to plug in more than one accessory. There are some rigs that kind of have all this in there. Generally, though, I mean, it really it depends on what you want to be doing with it. I tend to like to travel as light as possible. I generally like to use natural light when I'm shooting because the phones are really great at getting natural light. They're getting much better at doing low light now. And really, if I can just get away with just plugging in a microphone onto my computer and onto my phone, then that's great. The new phones, the 12, they have this, and I don't want to get too much into for just an Apple commercial, but the 12s, they have this now, this magnetic back, and there are going to be tons of video accessories for that. And because the magnetized back actually gives power, you'll be able to power things. So I've already seen someone's like designing a little light that clips on here that's powered by the magnet here, and then can still plug in. You can
And you
still plug
stick
in a
it to it.
microphone.
You have to plug it in.
Well,
Still,
no, you can just stick the light on the magnet.
Yeah.
And then you can plug in a microphone here.
But you still have to power it in the back.
The microphone, yes, but there are some microphones that are powered externally. Which generally with accessories, it's difficult because I would suggest it's difficult with iPhone accessories and smartphone accessories in general because a lot of them are sold online. But if you can sort of get your hands on one before you buy it, if you can go to a showroom of some video store or something, some accessory store, and see how it fits into your setup, because everyone's a little different. Everyone's a little more comfortable with one thing versus another. So if you can try it out before you commit to it as a piece of your rig, that's always better.
Mm-hmm.
We have time for a few more questions if anyone has any. Yeah, go ahead, Caitlin.
Yeah, can the iPhone record multiple channels of audio at the same time? I saw on the Filmic app there were the 2 channels of audio. So if you plug in an external mic, can you also record from an innate mic from the iPhone?
No, so even though it's actually recording, it's recording stereo pair is how it records, and that records also in the camera app. That's how it records in stereo pair, but it can only allow one audio input at a time. So like you saw, even when I was in Filmic Pro, when I was switching between those different options, if I had a microphone that was on there, I'd still only be able to have one selected. Now you can also get external audio recorders that you can record multiple channels. You can do all sorts of complicated stuff, but for the phone, you get one input. Cool. Is there any other questions? Great. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. And if anything comes up, if we turn off this meeting and I have a great question for Brett, you can always email me, brett.savaglio@thevj.com, or you can send an email to contact@thevj.com. We're always happy to answer your questions. And I hope everyone found this a little fun and informative. You guys have a good time? All right, great, everyone. I hope you have a great rest of the day. Thank you for joining us. And we'll see you next time for our next virtual workshop, which we'll be announcing shortly, topic to come. So stay tuned for that. And have a good rest of the day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hi, Michael.